People here so remember Edward Shevardnadze უკრაინა ევროკავშირის წევრი
უკრაინაში სრულმასშტაბიანი ომის დაწყების ერთ-ერთ საბაბად რუსული პროპაგანდა ნატოს აღმოსავლეთის გაფართოებას ასახელებს. კამში აცხადებენ, რომ უკრაინის სუვერენული საგარეო პოლიტიკა რუსეთს სასიცოცხლო საფრთხეს უქმნის და ამბობენ, რომ ნატოს აღმოსავლეთის გაფართოების შეჩერება სამხედრო ძალითაა საჭირო. თუმცა გაიცათ, დაახლოებით ამ დროს შესაძლოა ნატოს რუსეთთან საზღვარი გაორმაგდეს. ნატოში შესვლას სკანდინავიის ორი მეზობელი ქვეყანა, ფინეთი და შვედეთი ფიქრობს. რა შეიცვალა ახლა და რა შედეგები ექნება ნატოს აღმოსავლეთის გაფართოებას რეგიონისთვის, მათ შორის საქართველოსთვის. ამ და სხვა საკითხებზე ვესაუბრებით ფინეთის ელჩ სამხრეთ კავკასიაში კირსტი ნარინენს. Ambassador Narinen, thanks for talking to us.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Just before February 24, before Russia started its unprovoked aggression against Ukraine, your Prime Minister, Sanna Marin, was quoted as saying that Finland's membership of NATO was very unlikely under her watch. But next week, as the Finnish media reports, Finnish president is expected to deliver a statement, and if the membership bid gets the go-ahead from the parliament, the accession negotiations may start in a matter of a few weeks. We have seen another U-turn because the Finnish society, which has not, a majority of Finnish society did not support the idea of joining a military alliance, but nowadays the NATO membership bid enjoys an overwhelming support. So what has changed in terms of the security environment, and what tilted the balance in favor of NATO in Finland?
Well, first of all, a few kind of specific facts that you have to remember. The politicians were run over by the people. This is why Marin's statement then earlier was because that was according to the government program and according to the government's white paper on security and foreign policy that was given to the parliament and discussed with the parliament autumn 2020. 2020, yes. So she was speaking according to the speaking points based on that. But already late 2021 and early this year, the opinions of the people started to change. And that, it didn't mean that they made a U-turn, really. There was about 20% that were always for it, and about 20% that were against it, and then there was the 60% in the middle that were undecided. And then the undecided started to decide. And that was based on the threat assessment of those people, of the people. So, and that is of course based on, we have a very, our news coverage is very good, which means that people were genuinely following what is going on. And then the attack, the aggression, unprovoked aggression on Ukraine was kind of the last drop. Right. In the buckets, and then people just said that no, this is a different Russia with whom we had grown to have negotiations, to have talks, to hold the dialogue, even after Ukraine, after the annexation of Crimea 2014. But this is not the Russia that we've used to neighboring with. That this is a new Russia. This is an aggressive, unpredictable, unreliable, kind of a bunch of inhuman liars, you can even say. And people just thought that no, we can't manage with this with our defense forces anymore, we need support.
External layer of security.
External layer of security to have a contractual basis, because on political basis that outside layer was already there. We had a lot of about security, military security arrangements with the joint expeditionary forces with the United Kingdom. We had cooperation agreements with France, with Germany, of course, with our Nordic friends, with Sweden, with the Baltic countries. So this plus the EU's let's say security layer, which is of course a bit undefined what that might be, but it's there. So there were a lot of international layers already, but NATO obviously for everybody is the kind of so to say the best one, because it guarantees you the assistance that you might need.
Right. And obviously parliamentary deliberations are underway, which is part of the democratic process. But could we say that there is already a consensus among the major political forces that joining the club, the NATO club, will do more good for Finland and remaining non-aligned is not a choice anymore?
So it seems. There are also some parties have not established their final decision, like collective decision yet. But even in those parties, for instance, Social Democrats, there are party members that have been for it, and some have, even the traditional opponents have saying that should there be a consensus, they will also vote along.
Right.
So it seems.
Yeah. So we have mentioned the rogue actor here, Russia, which has attacked Ukraine in part because Ukraine wanted to display self-determination and autonomy when it comes to choosing one's friends and allies.
Yes.
And now we are seeing the same rhetoric in regards Finland and Sweden joining NATO. Russia, the Kremlin has voiced threats. They say that they will use military and political measures against your country if you decide to go ahead with the application. And talks are about possible use of nuclear forces, other forces. Based on what we've seen in Ukraine, we know that those threats no longer ring hollow. So what are the threat perceptions in Helsinki? And if you decide to go down that road of NATO application, what threats are coming from Russia?
Well, of course, we don't know. We don't know what they will actually, whether this speech will actually become deeds. This we don't know. But I think that the Finnish society, and it has to be pointed out and underlined, that now us being in this process together with Sweden, that is also giving us a kind of a double protection also against all kinds of threats or actions. And this is also the reason why we want to be in this process with Sweden, which also means that we had to slow down our process a bit to be able to give the Swedish the ability to join in, because their decision-making, so to say, processes and ideology is different from ours. Yes. On the other hand, we have had our resilience tested by Russia for a very long time, because we think our starting point is that Russia has actually considered Finland and Sweden to be very solidly part of the European, of the Western bloc, also militarily, for a very long time. I mean, their military intelligence knows how compatible the Finnish system is. They know that we have made the procurements, not only the big visible ones like the F-35 fighters that we decided to buy earlier this year. We signed the contract, but also in several other means that they are in their calculus. Finland has been as close as it can be to NATO already for a very, very long time. We've been taking part in the NATO meetings, NATO summits, NATO ministerials for a very long time if there had been issues that have been concerning the regional, for instance, Baltic Sea security. So we shall see, of course, but I think that we are pretty calm about that, because our society is built on comprehensive security concept, which means that in general we are resilient. And people are media literate. If I follow the Twitter, you can already see jokes about these possible threats and these actions that might be taking place, in particular in the media landscape.
Right. And last month, your government published a key report on the changed security environment in the region, which says that should Finland and Sweden become NATO members, the threshold for using military force in the Baltic region will rise. So referring to the NATO collective defense article number 5. Yeah. But on the other hand, we see this gap between ratifying the membership by NATO member states and after you've already made it known that you want to join the alliance. So how is your country trying to close this gap, and what are the Western partners promising? Are they promising to provide additional security in this interim period, or you will follow through with your own self-defense? And does the Finnish public see it as a problem that Russia will try to interfere before you get into the club? Well,
first of all, our security policy has always been based on very solidly on our own independent defense force. We have 285,000 men and women in uniforms. My son is doing the conscript army as we speak, so I've also seen how the training works, and it really does work. Also psychologically, so the soldiers are very, very patriotic in the sense of defending their country, which is now the strength of the Ukraine army as well. The other one has been the international rule of law and the international legal system, and then the international partnerships, which means that actually we have tools already existing to even counter a military aggression, which is also based on or has been discussed widely in this very, very intense network of visits that has been taking place during the last 2 months. United States, United Kingdom,
Germany.
France, Germany, of course, with us and Sweden, I think that the prime ministers are seeing each other more than they see their families, etc. So, and EU and NATO, of course, Jens Stoltenberg is speaking regularly with President Niinistö, who is now leading this process in Finland. So, I presume, of course, I am not aware of exactly the promises, and these promises are not public, but I presume that that these discussions are focusing this period of time when the application is in, but the membership is not there yet. We don't know how long period that takes. On the other hand, I think that Russia has enough on its plate with Ukraine at the moment. So the longer the war in Ukraine takes, which now seems to be not a short one, not a 3-day war, but rather a very long one, this is also taking a lot of Russian resources. So I really find it highly unlikely that in this situation Russia would be interested in having a military aggression on a state or states or region which they consider being a Western already for a very, very long time, which has a very credible, trained military capabilities. So the possibility of gaining anything with this aggression are marginal, if they're at all, also bearing in mind how they have been performing in Ukraine.
And also going against a country which has a successful track record of repelling Russia, referring to the Winter
Precisely,
War.
and which is definitely something that you cannot portray. You cannot build any kind of enemy image of Finland in Russia, because I mean the average Russian, in particular in the St. Petersburg region, like 90% of them visit Finland. Those who have visited Finland and also others, they consider Finland as a friend. And Finland, they have high regard for Finland. So building any kind of, denazify or demilitarize Finland, it doesn't fly. It might, right. It has flown for Ukraine, but not for Finland nor Sweden. Or Norway. I mean, Norway has been a NATO member for a very long time, and there is a very good cross-border cooperation with Norway. And my prediction is that when, the dust settles down, that we will eventually start also having some kind of a cross-border cooperation across our 1,343 kilometer borderline with Russia.
Yeah, which makes you most exposed to Russia among the potential member states.
Absolutely. I think that our border is more than the others together.
Right. And you've rightly noted that Russia is currently bogged down in Ukraine militarily, so it may not represent a pure military threat for the time being for Finland, but we know that there are other sorts of threats that may come from Russia, including hybrid threats, cyber threats. So what other measures is your government taking in addition to joining the military alliance to withstand the pressure from Russia?
Well, in this parliamentary white paper that is now being under scrutiny in the parliament, an extensive part of that is actually discussing others than military threats. It's talking about hybrid threats. It's talking about disinformation, information influencing. It's talking about cybersecurity. It's talking about the security of supply, in particular when it comes to energy, for instance, where we are still today. We are reliant on Russian gas, oil, and also electricity. So the government is definitely considering all these options, but cybersecurity is also, it is a technological tool, but it's also about the mindset. A lot of such cyber threats is actually about the malbehavior of the users of modern technology, and this is the thing that we can actually help ourselves to improve. Check before you share, and don't click any links that you don't know, etc., which will then open the doors for the cybersecurity. But obviously the risk is there. Obviously it's there. Our healthcare system is very highly digitalized. Our banking system is highly digitalized. Our energy distribution network is highly digitalized. So if you really want to have harm, I'm sure you can try. And there have been attempts already. When President Zelensky was giving a speech at the parliament, there was an attack on the home pages of ministries of defense and foreign ministry. But then they were dealt with, and I think this is about the general resilience, but it's also about the attitudes. And our Prime Minister has said that we are building now methods to also to diversify our energy sources, and then of course we are also even more connected with the Nordic energy network, and then we have a Baltic connector gas pipeline to Estonia, so I think we are pretty covered.
Finally, if the deed is done and the Finnish flag will be hoisted at the NATO headquarters in Brussels next year, what will be the implications for the wider region and also for other membership hopefuls like Georgia, that two able-bodied states have already joined the alliance?
Well, I think that it will actually definitely enhance stability and security in the Baltic Sea region. Then we will have the Nordic bloc. We already have the Baltic bloc, and when the Nordic and Baltic blocs usually tend to act nicely together, so this will be an additional element in that. It will also bring, of course, the deterrence element to the region, seen from or vis-a-vis Russia or seen from Russia. Which is increasing also the security of the Baltic states, obviously. And this, I think, is a very, very good, it's a stabilizing element there. As for the other applicant countries, I think this can function as a good example of how things can move swiftly if your homework is done. Because basically Finland started its NATO path in 1992 when we joined the partnership of 94, I think it was the Partnership for Peace. Then we started building the compatibility of our military forces with our own resources and our own initiative and our own determination and the strategy that we had. We didn't expect anybody else to do that for us. And the conscript army is a very, very good part of that, and that it's trained, and that we now can actually be, with Sweden, that we can be an asset to the alliance. And of course, a very, very important factor here is the political stability and the political unity of the society. And I think this is something where Georgia could, really work on this one, because this is also guaranteeing the fact that should there be a military aggression, that the people as one will stand against that aggression, like Ukraine being a prime example of that, and Finland in the Winter War, which was only 20 years after our very bloody civil war. Yet in that situation we were able to be united. And apparently
so the
also,
fighting spirit is there.
The fighting spirit needs to be there. It needs to be there. And there needs to be a reason that I know what I'm fighting for. And it's not the territory. I mean, territory we lost in the Winter War. We lost a substantial part of Finland, but we kept our state and our statehood. And that's what actually matters.
Ambassador Naaranen, pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much.